Ministry. I'm Laura McFarland, and it is Martha Monday, and that means we're at home in the kitchen bringing you a recipe. Sometimes it's an organizational tip, sometimes it's a household hack. Today it's a recipe, and we're making sugar cookies. And these aren't just any sugar cookie, there's a special ingredient that makes them special. I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but for right now, I wanted to give a plug for giving blood. Maybe a strange topic when it comes to making sugar cookies, but I went to my closet to get dressed to record the video, and it's Valentine's Day, so I wanted to do something that would be sweet and something special to do for those we love. So there's the sugar cookies. But I thought, well, I'll put on something red today. And so what caught my eye was my sweatshirt, my hoodie, that was given to me by the Community Blood Center of the Ozarks. Now, if you live in Northwest Arkansas or Southwest Missouri, you may have donated blood through the Community Blood Center of the Ozarks. If you live somewhere else, you can go to the American Red Cross and find a link and find a place that you can go to a blood center or to a local blood drive and give blood. I gave blood the first time when I was in charge of the blood drive with my student council in high school in Ripley, West Virginia. Go Vikings. I think I was 17 and my parents had to actually sign the permission slip so that I could actually give blood. But I'm just sharing that as just a little plug to encourage you to give blood. It's such an easy thing to do. It takes very little time, and it is just, there's such a huge need. I had given blood for many years, kind of got away from it during those childbearing years, and during the pandemic, I just felt so helpless, so much that I could pray about, but really wanted to do something practical. So I got back into giving blood, and I'm so grateful. When I'm eligible again every couple of months, I get that email and I sign right up and go on in. And it comes with blessings, not just the joy of knowing you are blessing someone else, but I always get a cool t-shirt or hoodie, a quarter zip, or a nice t-shirt, short sleeve shirt in the summer. So there's that benefit. And then they add points to my account online. And lo and behold, right before Christmas, I realized I had enough points to get a $25 Walmart gift card. So grateful for Walmart coming alongside and supporting giving blood in our community. And I cashed in my points, got a little gift card, and that was helpful with all the extra holiday baking I was doing. So there you go. There's my plug for giving blood. I hope you'll go and do that. But today we're here to bake sugar cookies. So got my sign up. I've got my recipe here. You can download your very own copy. If you look in the notes below the video, there'll be a PDF. You can click on that and print your own copy. This is a pretty easy recipe, just your typical standard ingredients. But the one sort of unique ingredient that makes it so special is cream cheese. There's 3 ounces of cream cheese in this recipe, and I'm convinced that that is what makes it so wonderfully moist. It really is a moist sugar cookie, and we just love them. So I'm going to share with you today what I do after they're baked, but for right now, we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm going to preheat my oven while I'm thinking about it to 375. So that will be all ready when we are finished up here. But let's just run down through the ingredients. I've got everything out and ready for us. So the first thing is 1 cup of white sugar. So we're gonna get my scoop out of the way, scoop this up. Always like to have a little straight edge to sort of level things off when I'm digging into the sugar or the flour. My sugar is so full I can't dig in my measuring cup very well, and I don't want to spill it all over. Just scoop it up, level it off. 1 cup of sugar. Now the cream cheese needs to be softened, and so I measured this out. It's 3 ounces, so I'll have 5 ounces left to do something else with. But I've had this sitting out, so hopefully it is soft enough. But I'm going to trust that my handy dandy KitchenAid mixer will also do its job and mix that in if it's not quite soft enough. I think my butter needs to be softened just a little more. It's been sitting out as well. So we're gonna just pause the video for just a little bit, and Brian will do his magic and sort of let things be paused while I dash over and just soften this just ever so much in the microwave. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I have my butter softened. It calls for 1 cup of butter. And I just got to remind you, ladies, if you haven't heard me say it before, you know, when I was younger and I just felt like I needed to save money, I baked with margarine, but you just need to use real butter. You just need to do it. It's just better than the fake stuff. So I always use real butter. So 2 sticks is 1 cup of butter. Okay, then after we get the butter, I'm going to go ahead and put in the salt. Now, the extracts are listed on my recipe first, but I looked down and I realized it's all 3 are half a teaspoon. Half a teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of almond extract, and half a teaspoon of salt. So I don't need to dirty up 2 half teaspoons, so I'm going to do the dry one first. So drop in my half a teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to drop in my half teaspoons of the extracts. Now, it's not unusual at all for a recipe to call for vanilla extract. It's almost surprising to find a cake or a cookie recipe that doesn't call for vanilla. That's just typical. But what's unusual is the almond extract. This is the stuff I love. It smells so potent and delicious. I love recipes with almond. I have a cake recipe that our family particularly loves that uses almond extract. It's a Texas sheet cake. I should do that for a Martha Monday sometime. Maybe I shall. Okay, then next is an egg yolk. Now, before I had a Pampered Chef party, I just always would open up my eggs and just sort of crack it and use the shell and sort of do it back and forth to take care of it and just get the egg and the yolks, the egg white and the yolk separated. And most of the time that works, and there's the one time you break the yolk and you've got a mess. So I've learned that this little device, whether you get the Pampered Chef one or not, I like the Pampered Chef one because it comes with this little rest that will sit right on the edge of the bowl you're using. And so it's super duper easy to separate the egg from the yolk. And then the white goes down, or separate the egg from the yolk. Separate the egg white from the egg yolk. And then the egg white is in my bowl. And that's going to become important when we have the cookies baked. We're going to have a topping of the egg white. We're sort of going to paint them with egg white before we bake them. And so that's sort of going to be a fun little finishing up. But this is going to make that easy to happen. I'm going to dash over to my refrigerator and grab an egg, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my egg. I wanted to leave it in the fridge nice and chilled the whole time. So I'm just going to give this a little crack. I'm going to crack it in here, set the shell aside, and then, as you can see here, the egg white will gravity will do its work, and the egg white will eventually separate from the yolk, and there it goes. Isn't that amazing? I love this little handy-dandy device, especially after not having one for all those years and trying to just go back and forth with the shell. Okay, so we're going to beat together all of our ingredients except the flour. So the flour is the last thing to come in. I've got it right here. So I'm going to wait on that. We're going to go ahead and get this started beating away. Get that in here. Get that start locked in. And here we go. All right. I'm going to let that keep going. It's going to mix together the butter and the cream cheese with the dry ingredients that we have so far, and then it'll be ready to add the flour. After that, we're going to divide this into thirds. We're going to get the dough all out together, divide it into thirds, because to make the sugar cookies work and to have them be able to cut them with the cookie cutter, which by the way, I found my heart-shaped cookie cutters. Sometimes when I make this sugar cookie recipe, it's Christmas and there may be candy canes and bells and wreaths and a whole plethora of different Christmas cutouts that you can do for cookies. But for Valentine's Day, it's just the heart. So I have 2 different size hearts. But the cookie dough needs to be nice and chilled. It needs to be really chilled. So I'm going to cut it in thirds, break it into thirds, leave 2 thirds in the refrigerator, to stay chilled while I cut out these. So we'll do we'll work up 1/3 of the dough, get those cookies into bake. While they're baking, the others will be chilling, and then I'll take one of those out and spread it out and cut those out next. Okay, this has come together nicely. I'm gonna stop it. Always keep a spatula around when I'm doing something in the mixer. Just take it off so I can get to it. I like to rake down the sides a little bit and make sure that everything is getting mixed in nicely, and it is. So it's kind of stiff. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it just is kind of stiff because the butter and the cream cheese were not melted. You don't want them to be melted. They need to be still chilled, but just softened enough that they'll mix in nicely. So go ahead and give that a little whirl. So that's looking like that's ready to go. The only thing we need to do now is drop in 2 1/4 cups of flour. And I did not really check my flour, and it's looking like I may, we'll see. I'm going to come close, but this girl is always prepared. I always keep extra flour on hand. So if I don't have enough, and I think it's gonna be close, I think I'm gonna make it, I can also dash off camera and get another bag of flour. So there's 1 cup, and oh yes, we're going to be just fine. And then here's the 2nd cup. Break that off. You need to be precise when you're baking. If you're just cooking, you can add a bit of this and a bit of that. But with cooking, you need to be or with baking, you need to be precise. Sounds like my oven is telling me that it's ready for our cookies. So when we get these all rolled out and cut out, I can put them into bake. Okay, so I have all my flour there. Gonna leave the flour out because I'm going to need to lightly flour my surface when I get ready to cut out the cookies. Drop this down. Now we're gonna just add the flour and just keeping it on the lowest setting. You just want it to get blended. You don't want the dough to get so stiff or anything. So I'm letting that go a little bit. It's getting mixed in. I'm going to need to rake down the sides. While that is finishing up the mixing, move my recipe out here a little bit. I'm going to move all these things off to the side, creating more workspace, but mostly space so that you can see on video sort of what I'm doing. I have my little paintbrush here to paint on the egg white. So we are going to get everything set and ready. Let's see, I think that's about done. Let's take this off. It's kind of sticking to my beater, so I'm gonna rake it off a little bit, but I want to break down the sides and make sure that all the flour is completely mixed in. When you finish these, it's always fun to get a little small cellophane bag and some red little ribbon and put a cookie in a bag and take it to someone or do a plate of them. They're just so fun. Who doesn't love getting a little sweet treat at Valentine's Day? And sure, you could go buy a bag of whatever with a heart on the outside, but does anything say love more wonderfully and sweetly, see what I did there, than a homemade sugar cookie? So I think this is just about good to go. Yes, indeed. Let's take it off. Unpack that. I'm going to get my cookie sheet that I'm going to use. It's right here. Not cookie sheet, my cutting board. I'm going to use this to spread out the dough. Put just a little bit of flour here so that it is lightly floured. There we go. I'm going to take off my ring because I don't like to get, when I have my hands into something, I don't want to get dough into my rings when I bake. When I'm messing with the beater with my hands, I always like to unplug the mixer first. So let's do that so that we don't have something strange happen. I don't think anything would come on by itself. This is chilled, it's sticky, it's sticking to the beaters. We're gonna get this all off because I don't want to wash a cookie down the drain. I want to have every single morsel made into a cookie that I will enjoy, or my family will enjoy, or my friends, or whoever I'm going to choose to bless with one of my sugar cookies. So here we go. Now, when we finish these up, a couple of options, I mentioned that before. You can do what is probably less familiar to you, paint them with a little bit of egg yolk, or you can just go ahead and bake them plain, and then you can ice them with whatever icing you like, just maybe a plain white vanilla icing, and then add sprinkles. Of course, you can make the icing all sorts of fun colors, red or pink, drop on sprinkles. You can get all fancy. Some people are really doing amazing things with decorating cookies, and it becomes just almost a work of art. So if you ice them and then do some red squiggly lines or whatever, they can just be absolutely lovely. Sometimes I'm at a wedding shower or a baby shower and they have those fancy, beautiful cookies, and they're just such a work of art. You almost feel badly eating them. You just feel like, oh my goodness, I should just frame this and put it up somewhere. It's so pretty that it's almost too pretty to eat. So I think we have all the dough out of there. So I'm going to do this in about a third. Actually, I think I'm going to do about a half. The recipe says a third, but I think I can get about a half of it worked out. I'll put the rest of that in the refrigerator in a moment off camera so that it can be chilled. It does need to be cold because even just working with your hands, the heat from your hands will warm up the dough. So I probably may have been a better idea to use my spatula to get it out instead of my hands, but I'm going to go ahead. You can even put a little flour on your rolling pin if you're concerned that it's going to stick to your rolling pin. I have another one that isn't wooden that sometimes works a little better. My friend Beth gave me for Christmas and I really love it, and it may do a better job, but you're going to have some sticking problems as your dough gets more warm. So I'm just going to spread this out. The recipe says about 1/4 of an inch thickness, maybe between 1/4 and 1/8. I have a hard time. It's a challenge to get it a consistent thickness here, especially when I'm working on the small little surface than I am, but I would rather work on something that I can move around a little bit than on my countertop. Okay, so I've got that spread out. There we go. I'm going to use my cookie cutters and just cut these out. Some will be larger than others. Got the little one here. Do a couple of little ones. And then you can turn the cookie cutter upside down to fit the end in so that you have less waste. Now, I'm not going to waste it, of course. I'll roll it back up later, but it's sort of like a challenge to me, a personal challenge to try to see how little dough I can waste. I do the same thing when I bake biscuits. Of course, you're going to roll it up and do another one, but it's kind of fun to see how many I can fit in without having to roll it up and redo it. So we're going to get these completed, and I'm going to go ahead, pull these off. Let me grab my baking stone here, also a Pampered Chef baking stone. After I discovered this, I never wanted to bake on a cookie sheet again. I just love the way the stone just makes everything that I bake on it, pizza crust or bread, a loaf of bread or cookies, just nice and even and nice and brown, just at the right consistency. There's some science behind that probably a Pampered Chef consultant or the manufacturer of this product could tell you. I just know that I like the finished product, and I can't quite recall now what I heard parroted back to me probably 25 years ago when I bought my baking stone, but it works. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm just picking up my little cookies here, and the edges might have a little crumbly look to them. So as I pick it up, I'll just try to shape them a little bit and tap down those little edges, or if they became a little misformed in the pulling up, I'll just try to repair that. They'll bake up and be just fine. And certainly, no matter how they look, even if it is a little bit of a disformed heart, it will taste just as good. So aren't they so cute? I've got a couple of big ones to get off. And then I'll probably finish up to fill my whole baking stone. So I'm probably going to chill the dough just a little bit and then fill up my baking stone, get them all baked. I don't want to run my oven all day long with just a handful of cookies, but I want to get these on here to show you how to paint them and then sprinkle things on. We'll get these baked and then I'll take a photo of what they look like all finished so that you can see the final product. Now, I'm not going to do the icing today. I'm going to opt to push the easy button and just paint it with my egg white and sprinkle on the sprinkles. But when you make it at home, especially if you're doing it with your kids or your grandkiddos, they just love to decorate. So that might be a lot more fun to get out the icing. And even if you don't make the icing homemade, you can buy a little can of that pre-done stuff. At least your cookie is homemade, right? So here we go. I'm gonna hold this up so you can see. I've only got about half my baking stone filled, so I'm gonna roll out some more cookies. But in the meantime, before I do the other ones, and that poor little heart has a little hump. He looks like he's got a little, I don't know, hump on the side. He's not a camel, so I fixed him up a little bit. Okay, so here is my egg white, all nice and ready to go. So I'm just gonna get that with my paintbrush a little bit, and I'm just going to brush lightly the tops of my cookies. Now, I like to brush the top when I make French bread. I like to brush the top of my bread with an egg white or even just a whole egg. I do that with my rolls. If I make clover leaf rolls because of whatever we're having for dinner. So I usually think about it with bread. So when I saw this on this recipe when I first tried it years ago, I thought that was interesting. Gives a little glaze look to it. And rather than just having a plain old cookie, you've got it special, but also you don't have to go to all the extra bother of whipping up the icing or piping on the different pink or red or white icing on top of it. So this is a quick fix, lets it come together quickly. So I have my egg white brushed on top of all of that. I've got just some red sugar sprinkles. I thought maybe I had some red balls and I don't, so this will work. These were left over from Christmas, and so that's the great thing. When you buy things at Christmas that are red, you can carry them over to Valentine's Day. Friends, I have even been known to buy on clearance some Hershey Kisses after Christmas, and I go through and pull out all the red and silver ones and then just let the family have at it on the green ones, and you've got Valentine's Day candy from the clearance Christmas candy. That's just a bonus tip for you today. Okay, let's get our little sprinkles on top of here, and of course I'm getting some on the cookie sheet, but that's okay. I'll clean those off before the next batch, or if a cookie sits on top of some sugar, then the bottom has some as well, no problem. So I like it to be a little bit heavy. And of course it's nice because we know that the egg white wash is going to keep that on there. So let me hold this up so you can see what it looks like. There you go. I'm gonna get these completed. I'm going to put them in the oven. They bake for 7 to 9 minutes until lightly browned. Your oven may be different than mine. So I'm gonna put these in, get them baked up. I'm gonna add a few more to it, and then I'll be back. I'll take a photo. Brian will overlay that on the video, and you can see what they look like. I hope that you'll give my Valentine sugar cookies a try. I hope that you will bless your family with them. Give me a thumbs up if you plan to make them, and if you think they are great or not. I'd also love to know who you plan to bless with sugar cookies, or just give me an idea of who in your community, in your neighborhood, in your family would be a good person to take these to. Maybe you're thinking really outside the box. You're gonna drop them off the church office for the church secretary, or you're gonna wrap up a few for your kid's basketball coach, or send one to school for the teacher, take one to the piano teacher, run them across the street to the lady that's shut in, or the family that just lost a loved one. The ideas are endless, but hopefully, of course, you'll leave a few for those that live under your roof and that you love, because nothing says I love you more than a sweet little sugar cookie at Valentine's Day. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us for this edition of our Martha Monday. For Cross My Heart Ministry, I'm Lori McFarland saying Happy Valentine's Day from my house to yours.